Hi, thank you for joining us on a closer look at the feature match process for AAC, Augmentative and Alternative Communication Tools. My name is Kelly Fonner, and I'm your presenter today for the Feature Match Closer Look for AAC Systems. And I'm doing these presentations in partnership with the Nebraska Assistive Technology Partnership Program. We're going to be taking a look at the AAC consumer and assessment process, the types of AAC systems, features of AAC systems including input processing, output, and other, and looking at some assessment resources. This will be a general look at AAC systems, and we'll have more specific webinars for low-tech AAC apps and AAC high-tech devices. Again, my name is Kelly Fonner. I do training and consulting in educational and assistive technologies. My background is as a special education teacher, and in my many years in the classroom, either as a teacher, a paraprofessional, or an assistive technology consultant, I worked with individuals who were in need of AAC systems due to complex communication needs. I've worked with children from early childhood through adulthood, and am working with individuals now online and in classrooms. I'd like to thank my colleagues for sharing their information with me that I'm sharing with you here today. And you will see more references as we go through the content. Some of the things to be thinking about as we look at the area of augmentative and alternative communication is that it doesn't just fit one type of disability, that we look at that function of expressive communication and the kinds of supports that people might need from early childhood through aging years, where things like aphasia may impact a person's ability to communicate. So we see a wide range of people who use AAC systems and who can make use of AAC systems. So we look at this group that they are completely alternative communication users. They struggle to speak out loud with their own natural voice. They have little to no understandable speech, and they have difficult time often with comprehension, whether it's people comprehending what it is that they're saying, or they need symbols to help pull their messages together to speak more than one word at a time. We have a group of people that we fit into this expressive language group where they have a speech motor disorder, and their language may be intact for their age group, but they really struggle to express themselves vocally. And then we have a large group of individuals who use AAC as a support, that they might have a mild to moderate speech struggle, that people do not understand what it is that they say. Their language level may or may not be at their chronological age. With all three of these groups that Penny Reed and Paula Walser define, we look at the use of assistive technology, specifically augmentative and alternative communication tools, in different ways and for different purposes. When we look at how do you organize and how do you think about AAC systems, we have systems that are self-contained, we have systems that are software programs, we have systems that are apps that are downloadable on the mobile technologies that exist, and we have low-tech tools as well, printed communication boards and systems. So one of the ways to take a look at these systems and to organize your thought process about is, do you need something that's very full-featured, something that has all of the abilities to express thousands and thousands of words, phrases, sentences, spelling? Do you have something that may be a mid-featured system? So something that has a large vocabulary, but not maybe all of the abilities to predict ahead, to interface with other kinds of technologies. We have some AAC systems that exist on the web only, where editing is done on the web, and the system is run off the web. We have other systems that look at the ability to program things on the web and push it out to that high-tech AAC system. We have some systems that are more basic. They might have core vocabulary. We have some things that are more simple communication with just a few words, maybe in a chat type of mode. We have systems that are based upon diagrams and scenes, this idea of visual scene display that we'll explain a little bit later. And then we have systems that are also text only. This is a structure that Jennifer Martin talks about in her presentations. When we look at all these different types of systems, including the low-tech systems, AAC also includes amplification. So different voice amplifiers and voice projection systems, object boards, clock scanners, eye gaze frames, whether they're static or dynamic. We look at picture cards and picture readings that people might use as expressive supports. We might see that people use different types of language boards. It might be one board, like a core board, or it may be activity boards for particular things that are going on, like a board to take swimming with you, or a board to take to the bingo hall. We might look at boards that have multiple layers. You'll also see some language systems that the organization of that language is also tied to multiple layers, such as picture exchange communication system, or people might know that more as referenced as PECS, which is the process of handing a picture card to someone to communicate a message to them. We have POD, the pragmatically organized dynamic display systems that have a way of pragmatically organized vocabulary as you move through multiple pages. Here's an example of a POD book where I might have some common chatting vocabulary on the first page. I turn the page to get to some more information. So I have operational commands as well as speaking commands. On the next page, I have what's called pragmatic branches. So if I'm ready to talk about I want to go somewhere, I follow that go pathway, and that's going to get me to information about places to go, things that I might want to talk about with going. So that, let's go to my home, or I want to go outside. The devices themselves tend to get split up into categorization based upon whether they're a low-tech device. It might be something that's battery run, that has multiple levels where you change the pages based upon the level, or high-tech systems that are dedicated devices that they were made to be an AAC system. It's basically a talking box of words. And then you'll see the non-dedicated systems. So non-dedicated systems are when we use things like laptops and tablets and other, personal devices such as telephones that have AAC apps running on them. That system can be more than an AAC system. It's not dedicated as an AAC system. So it may be something that is utilized for different functions. Some cases, children might have, or people may have, more than one AAC non-dedicated system. For example, they might have an iPad that runs an AAC app, and then they have a second iPad for doing all of their internet surfing, watching YouTube videos, schoolwork, etc. But they always have one dedicated system as their AAC system. Of course, we're going to be looking to follow the assessment process. Just because we're in AAC doesn't mean that we're following another assessment process. So getting the kind of information that you can. Many individuals have used AAC systems or types of AAC strategies prior to a full AAC evaluation. So getting that kind of information about what worked, what didn't work, preferences, non-preferences, really can help you move forward in the process. We'll also look at the desired outcomes. Where are they going to be using this? Who are they going to be talking to? Things like volume control and portability come in interviews about that type of information. And then we go to the heart of the assessment process, which is looking at an individual's skills and matching those skills and desired outcomes to the features of tools. And that's what we're primarily talking about here in this session. After you find the tools that you might trial, and you go through your trial process and find the one that meets the most needs, then we revisit to make sure that we have found a match, and then we look to see if we can start to plan some implementation strategies, that involve training and possibly modeling and support visits to an individual who's just getting started. We look at, in that process, is also figuring out funding and funding strategies, rental if possible, and then once something is procured, how do we get that up and running? And looking at how do you follow up and follow along. So it's really the same process as we do for the rest of the assistive technology assessment process. We look at these ideas of what is it about the consumer, the AAC communicator, what are their abilities and needs as it relates to assistive technology, what are the expectations and the supports within their environments, and what are the functions and the priorities for them to use this communication tool. In the resource section here, we'll be giving you some assessment assistant information so that you can gather this kind of skill information from your clients. Technology breaks down as it does in the typical feature match process. We look at how does that person interface with the technology? Do they touch it? Do they look at it? Is it something that they use a switch to access? How is processing set up? Now, this has a lot to do with layouts and vocabulary organization, how messages are stored, how messages are retrieved when we look at AAC in particular. Output-wise, pretty obvious. What do you get as a result? Do you get printed output? Do you get print on screen? Do you get an actual printed paper? Can you send messages to email and texting and to other places of social media? What type of output is it? Auditory. So we'll take a look at these features more in depth, as well as adding some of those extra special human features that make or break a system. Skills, we look at skills as it's related to a person's use of the system. What is typically said about AAC is that there are no prerequisites to using augmentative and alternative communication. If we have somebody that's struggling to be understood, we should intervene with an AAC system right away. Just as we look at young babies who are learning to use their own natural voice, we don't put any prerequisites on them starting to talk. For those young babies that are struggling to talk, we should be putting AAC systems in place so that they learn the tools of their future communication right alongside their peers who are learning the tools of their vocal communication. So we look at receptive language, which is often higher than expressive language in people who struggle to communicate. We look at physical access because that's going to impact what type of access to their iPad or their tablet, their dedicated device, or their low-tech system. They might use some kind of partner-assisted scanning system. We look at sensory. What kinds of supports will they need visually and auditorily? Do they need tactile supports to interact with the symbols on their system? How will they be using this socially? What are their social skills? What kinds of social supports might we need to build into their AAC system? What types of supports for cognition, for interacting and operating their systems might need to be supported? And the idea of attitude. Are you a person who is predisposed to using some type of technology? Sometimes we run into the older generation where maybe as their communication skills are waning due to aphasia, head injury, or other types of syndromes or ailments, that they either may or may not want to use assistive technology to communicate. They may want to use some low-tech strategies, such as spelling boards. They might want to use a system that is based on sign language. It's not always to assume that somebody is excited about high tech. This has happened in my own family. My sister-in-law, she was a woman who had cerebral palsy, who had used her own natural voice most of her life. But when she hit her 50s and 60s, her breath support started to wane. And so it was very difficult to understand her. And to this day, I still have her communication system. My sister-in-law, Kay, lived to be 72 years old. And she used a communication board to communicate with all of us and people in her community. This is an example from Kay's communication system. She was very literate. She liked to spell. She had some common words that she would use for people, places, the types of assistance that she might need from caregivers. Some additional considerations when you're providing a tool for expressive communication. Remember, when we're talking about AAC, we're talking about expressive communication. We also do modeling through the system where we use an individual system to model messages that they could potentially say. But when we look at expressive communication, we're thinking about multiple things that especially follow into that processing area. Not only is it that we want to give somebody speech output, but we also want to build their language. It's not just enough to press a button and have a system talk for you. You need to be able to put words together, to interact, to stay on topic, to change topics, to interact differently based upon the partner that you're communicating with. And all of that also involves pragmatics, that whole social construct to how we interact in different situations with people. So systems need to be flexible. Systems aren't just about answering questions or asking questions or making requests. We have multiple functions that get involved and multiple types of messages that get involved when we're utilizing an AAC system. Let's take a look at some features of AAC systems. We look at how that person has the human technology interface, whether they're doing direct selection. You'll hear that term, where we are directly interacting with our hand, a finger, your toes, your eyes, a pointer of some kind. Or if you have a more indirect selection, whether you're using a switch or whether you have somebody partner assisted scanning for you, where the items in your display are presented to you and then you interact with them through another interface. So through the presentation, you'll see some different examples of how switches scan through materials, how people can partner assist scan with their voice or by pointing or shining a light. We look at the real physical features, the size of items, the shape of items, how hard it may be to press a particular product, or if there's any type of built-in accessibility features so that if we press too hard or if we roll across the screen, it's not going to give us multiple hits on the same item. Some systems are built to have tactual items put on them so that people that need to have raised symbols can take advantage of AAC as well. We look at the changes to acceptance rate and timing, and also if we need any built-in auditory fishing or auditory cueing while somebody's trying to find their system and their message. Now let's take a look at processing features. One of the most concrete processing feature is the type of symbol. Is it a line drawing? Is it a photograph? Is it text? You know, are those things colored in? So, and how are they colored? So that's one of the things that we'll take a look at. We look at ethnic representation. We look at the message label, whether it's present or not on a symbol, and how large a symbol is in its space. You'll see a variety of symbol types. There's no hierarchy in AAC symbol selection. We look at what makes the most sense to your consumer, and we find a matching system to that symbol set that is their preference. It becomes a part of the feature match process as to what type of symbols that you're going to be using with somebody and what type of system can run those symbols. We look at how are those symbols organized? How's the vocabulary and the language structure? People look at having a robust language structure so that we have many words that are available to consumers. There is no rules in assistive technology that you have to know a symbol before a symbol is placed onto your AAC system. This isn't how we learn words. We learn words by having access to those words in multiple situations, and we have people modeling for us and showing the use of those symbols. Symbols can be organized in a variety of structures, as you can see. They can be organized in taxonomies, by categories. They can be organized by activities, or what might be called schematically. So you have all the words that you need to go to church. You have all the words that you need to play a game. You have all the words that you need to play with toys. Some systems are organized by visual scenes. You'll see a large image that will have hotspots that speak right on the photograph or right on the drawing. There may be some extra symbols to support around the sides, but most of the communication happens right on the image itself. So if I was an image of me, you would touch my face and it would say Kelly, or it would say face, or it would say eyes, however you have it set up that way. We have many systems that are set up linguistically, so that based upon one layout, you'll have all of your parts of speech, and then you'll have ways to get to more vocabulary, either through taxonomies or topics. So topics help us communicate because all of our words are organized based upon a particular activity or a thing that we do. Anecdotes are the idea of telling stories. Many of us are storytellers, and the ability to tell stories and retell stories needs to be a part of an AAC system too. And to have a truly highly flexible AAC system, you also have access to the alphabet, so that you can begin to spell, you can use word prediction and other supports to create the unique words that you may want to say that are not pre-programmed by somebody else. Those language structures are organized in some systems on a single board and in other systems by multiple boards. Sometimes to retrieve those messages, it's a one hit and you hear the message. And in other systems, it may be multiple hits before you get a message or a particular word. When we look at those kinds of messages as well, we see the structure, and people hear about the structure of core vocabulary. So core vocabulary is going to be those 80% or more words that are used very frequently by many people, all the different morphological forms of those words, and they're used across context. But we also say a lot of individual, the term is called fringe words. So they're unique words that are very specific to activities and locations. They tend to be a lot of nouns. And sometimes people will just create these kinds of fringe boards, and they forget those building blocks of language in the core vocabulary. That might be a smaller set of words, but used much more frequently. And of course, we also have personal vocabulary. So places where you are, people that are in your world, your favorite foods, your favorite items, those kinds of things also create a structure within an AAC system. How those messages are stored is also a part of the processing features. Are messages stored and retrieved by whole sentences? Maybe parts of a message, I like, I see, I want, paired with other things. Complete whole words, so I'm putting together messages. I may have spelling, and then also things like function keys for volume, clearing, and those other types of operational controls. There isn't one structure that wins above the other. Often the best systems have a combination of whole messages, part messages, single words, and alphabet, so that when you're in social situations and chatting, you can get messages out very quickly. You can get partial messages out to start a conversation and then bring somebody in so that you can be more specific with your individual words. You can put together presentations ahead of time and go through that presentation sentence by sentence and yet take questions word by word. So you have that mixture, gives you the most flexibility in system. These kinds of processing and retrieval methods have lots of different terminology that are associated with them. Often the terminology of how a structure is put together is unique to a particular AAC company. So what one company might be called levels and locations, another company would call dynamic displays. We look at rate enhancement. Some companies do rate enhancements by pop-up windows. Some do rate enhancements through prediction. So we see a variety of these ways that people interact with AAC systems. And we'll be giving you some more examples in future feature match presentations that are relative to AAC apps, high-tech systems, and low-tech systems. An additional processing feature is giving a person the ability to repair conversation. So whether it's something that a message that they were putting together that they need to fix before they speak it out loud, or maybe something that they have to interrupt while it's being spoken, or possibly when they're communicating with someone that doesn't understand their message, so they could tell somebody, hey, that's not right. Let me say that to you again. Or please wait while I put my message together. These kinds of things that help to be strategic and repair help AAC communicators within different contexts, and especially when they're speaking with unfamiliar partners. The concrete piece of almost every assistive technology feature match process is what you get as a result of using it. What is the visual presentation? When somebody's communicating, do they have a message strip? Whether it's in print, whether it's symbolized, is that message window spoken? Can it be altered? Can it be sent to email? All of these kinds of things extend the use of an AAC system. How is the auditory? Is it human recorded voice? Can you make sounds and different kinds of whistles and claps and those kinds of things that can be recorded sound? Is it a digitized synthetic voice that you have that you can match gender and age with it? Do you have any kind of tactile feedback or need for tactile feedback? For individuals who aren't seeing displays, they might need a Braille display to accompany them, or maybe the person that they're speaking with might need a Braille display to be able to listen to the message through tactile means. Does it interface with other technologies? We're seeing some of the high-tech systems having built-in cameras so people can take pictures of things that they want to communicate with. They are able to save their files so that messages aren't lost, and other ways of keeping and storing new and unique information. Human factors and those other factors really make an impact. Making sure that a part of your AAC evaluation and feature match includes color and size, portability, looking at those built-in carry systems, table mounts, wheelchair mounts, all those ways that people need to be able to get their own AAC system around. Looking at whether a company has loaner systems or rent-to-buy policies and their training and support. These kinds of factors really make a difference. And just like any other type of feature match process, we're looking for AAC systems in creating this feature match list. This is just the feature match form from the SET framework, where the features go across the columns and the names of the apps or dedicated devices or low-tech tools go down the rows. And then in the feature matching process as it is, you go through each item and match up. Yes, it has this feature. No, it doesn't. Yes, it has this feature. No, it doesn't. And in the end, you end up with this matrix that shows you, of all the tools that people were thinking about, which tools have the most matches to the features that this consumer needs. And that helps make your decision about where to start with trials. We've also given you another form that's really specific to AAC apps that looks at what kind of operating system is it on, what kinds of input features do you need, processing features, other visual appearances, those output constructs, and also if it's something that needs to be scanning, what type of scanning. So this is kind of a one-page all-inclusive of features of AAC app. Just, to be really thinking about it, Pat Arand, an AAC specialist in the Maryland area, talks about making sure that you are providing a full range of communication, that you have compatibility with the user's lifestyle, that it's not something that is an AAC tool that's the preference of the therapist or the preference of the evaluator, but it is truly meeting the needs of that consumer. That it doesn't restrict communication partners. For example, if you have a system that only has text output, what if I have a person that I'm interacting with that doesn't read? Do I also have auditory output? Do I have symbolized output? I want to make sure that I'm not restricting that number of people that they can talk to. There was a difficulty with my sister-in-law's system in that her output was all letter by letter spelling. And some of the older individuals in her life struggled to keep up with how fast she could spell. And so one of the things that we did is made sure that she always had paper notebooks with her so she could hand that to somebody who was a listener, and they could write down the letters as she touched them so that they could keep up with their spelling. So sometimes there's accommodations that you make for partners. It's not just all the accommodations are made on the AAC communicator side. We look to make sure that things are usable in all positions and environments that somebody goes into. We can't have our communication system just stay at school and not go with us to the doctors or to Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or some other place in the community. We need to be able to communicate all over the place that we go. We also want to make sure that systems aren't restricted to just one topic, that they aren't just requesting boxes, that they also can comment, be social, complain, all these other kinds of things that people say with their words. We want a person to be able to say with their words. As you're planning for trials, what you're doing is generating that list of AAC systems that have features that match with the user's needs and abilities. We look at how can you get loaners, all the various places that you can get loaners so that you can try it. Sometimes in the world of AAC, if it's an app, they have downloadable 45-day trials. They have light versions of the app that aren't as full-featured, so you can look and explore some of those options as well. We determine what kind of environments we're going to be trialing things in. Ideally, you'll do trials across all the environments that the person that you're working with is going to be utilizing their AAC system in. And then as you're doing the trials, you're collecting data, whether that data is through rating scales or time measures, interactive recording, and a video profile of individuals' use of AAC systems, looking at how much support they might need while they're using it. There are some examples of ways that people do data collection. We'll talk more about this in individual systems in a later session, but you can do interviews, you can survey people, you can keep video diaries, you can keep language samples, you could do assessment tools such as the communication matrix that looks at communicative functions and whether that function is emergent or mastered or not even used yet. We look at some other measures such as how people communicate in different social situations, such as the social networks assessment tool. So you'll see some examples, and some of those examples include language sampling, where in particular activities you do a language sample for, a 10 or 20 minute period of time, and you'll see some more information on language sampling and how we use language sampling, some of which can be built into the high-tech systems through the language activity monitor, and others that you do by recording the messages that individuals speak, who they speak to, how complex it is. Both of these examples are free, the pragmatic profile for people who use AAC and the language activity monitoring from the AAC Institute. So if you're looking for support in data collection, check these two sources out as well. So as we come to the end of this quick look at AAC feature matching, we'll think about yourself and what's going on in your system, because just providing the AAC device is not enough. Making sure that you look at potential barriers that people will need to overcome in order to use their system, to be trained in their system, all those things are a part of that implementation planning. And in AAC, assessment and implementation are so interwoven. You know, you have to be thinking about implementing it while you're assessing for it, so you can take into account all of the particular situations that an individual communicates in. There are some more assessment tools that are out there. There's an additional handout if you go to the bit.ly that's marked on the screen, which is bit.ly/AAC assessment PP, and that will get you to another handout more detailed on AAC assessment. So look at some of these tools, including tools that are provided by the assistive technology companies that specialize in AAC systems. So things like the DAG from Tobii Dynavox, the Prenke Romic, trial data collection, and in addition, some more information on AAC systems and apps, organizations and consultants that can help you along your pathway to finding particular systems, to implementing those systems, finding vocabulary lists, data collection. This kind of information can be really helpful as you move forward in AAC. So thank you for your attention and time and this closer look at AAC feature matching. I hope to see you at additional, more in-depth webinars.
Thank you for watching this webinar. For more information on the ATP Education Program, please visit our website at atp.nebraska.gov or email us at atp.education@nebraska.gov.